Well, welcome everybody. Welcome in as everyone's Zoom is churning and flipping over and meetings are ending and everyone's joining. Glad everyone could join us for this walkthrough of the 2025 PSC State of Enablement Report. First, I do want to introduce our panelists for today who are going to be joining me in digging through the report itself. They've all read it, or at least they told me they have. I hope they have. And they're going to be providing their look through the topics as we go through. First, we have Anna Vayneris, who hopefully many of you know. She is a senior pre-sales enablement leader, more than 18 years in the space, both leading global teams as well as things focused on partner enablement, talent programs, and a lot focused around enablement. I was very happy to have Anna join us and provide her perspective, given all the work that she's done around enablement and the go-to-market and pre-sales teams. Second, we have Chris Trapani, who's currently Director of Solutions Engineering, Global Enterprise at Cisco Systems, someone that I know because he's actually taken advantage of some of the enablement things that we have here at PreSales Collective. That's how I got to know Chris. I've really enjoyed his perspective on things. And he's got, a real passion for technical expertise, building out teams, over a decade of pre-sales leadership himself as well. So Chris, also thank you for joining the panel. And finally, Liz Anderson, who hopefully many of you know as well. She is currently a senior sales engineer at Seismic, co-founder of the SC Enablement Learning Network, so something very near and dear to her heart, which is this topic. And hopefully many of you know her from her time here at PreSales Collective, where she served as our director of learning at PreSales Collective. She helped build out a lot of the programs that exist today, including our pillar programs, and helps to create a program that we have that caused this report to happen. So I'm very excited that Liz could come back to join us to walk through it today. Welcome, Anna, Chris, and Liz.
Thanks so much.
We're going to be diving through a few things. There's 5 high-level topics that I want to dig into that are in the report. And we're going to go through each of these, talk about a key metric, and then get into a little bit of the anecdotal as well. And we'll be hearing from our panelists on each of those. The first is onboarding. I made 2 posts to get people to this webinar, and I realized after I made the second post that I made both posts on the same metric. But I think it's one of the most critical ones. So I want to start here. And it's the idea that 93% of teams have onboarding, but only 50% tailor it for their SCs. So first off, the fact that 7% have no onboarding is scary. I hope none of you have had to be there and have gone through that, but likely some of you have. But the fact that only 50% of you get anything tailored for you as a pre-sales professional is difficult, because as we know, it's not an easy thing to start in a role. There's a lot of soft skills, a lot of things you have to learn about the role. But I want to talk a little bit about that and how critical this is, and is this something we need to address? So Anna, I'd like to start with you. How critical is SE-specific onboarding in your experience?
It's very important. First of all, thank you for having me, and thanks for asking that question. Onboarding and enablement is near and dear to my heart. But in general, when you have general onboarding, we all know people get up to speed on the company. But when you have SC onboarding, that gets them ready to run after opportunities. So if onboarding isn't SC specific, then you have new hires that are learning slides, not skills. And we need them to learn those skills. So when you have SC specific training, you then raise the time to value, and you don't risk opportunities with new SCs. So you're not going to get AEs saying, I don't want that new SC on my team. So in my experience, when we had SC specific training, we really do see ramp time drop when we tailor and do things like labs and buddy practice. So in short, it's essential. And when you do role-based labs, when you do 30, 60 day, 90 day check-ins, that really does shorten the ramp time.
Couldn't agree more. I think this has been a problem for like my whole career. This is where we definitely fall into the gap of like we don't have SE specific onboarding. And I work at a massive company. So when you have like the generalist like company onboarding, it's very different than what somebody's going to use in their day-to-day. So my experience has been send somebody to like the onboarding, they learn like how do you spell Cisco, but then we have to then train those people after the fact because they didn't pick it up early. I'm really, really big on sales process, technical sales process. I use like a pitch demo design POV methodology. And so it's my belief, like if that's what we're expecting our SEs to be doing, we need to be training them to do those things and not like generic things about the company. So I think it's a huge problem that probably a lot of people are dealing with, and I would love to solve it.
We would all love to solve it. Give us the money for it.
Sounds
Yeah, I
good.
think that's I think some of the problem, which I think we'll get to a little bit about kind of the funding and justification of this, but yeah, giving us the money or the resources to solve it sometimes can be the problem as well. Liz, I know when we were talking before, you've got a story to kind of share related to this around kind of solving some of those onboarding gaps through a buddy system. Can you kind of dig into that a little bit?
Yeah. And so like when we were thinking about onboarding, and a lot of times I think people forget that part of onboarding, and honestly just part of like enablement programs in general, not only should you be having the information coming from the top down, but you also need to be having this more like peer-to-peer or like kind of bottom up, just to make sure that the things that you're talking about are sticking. And so one of the things that I noticed when I was a manager in a pre-sales organization was that while we had a buddy system, the consistency between each peer buddy was completely different. There wasn't any sort of like, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's some of the things to talk about. So you had some people who were incredible at really helping ramp their peers really quickly. They knew exactly who to go to. They helped them navigate internal systems as well as just understand how to talk about things in general. And so by going in and making a more consistent process, making it be something that you almost like had to certify into to be a peer buddy, as well as what the expectations were, it really helped in terms of bridging that gap of more of that peer-to-peer learning early on.
Yeah, I think every org I've been a part of has had some sort of onboarding buddy. I think you're right. That's often not as helpful as it's been in other places. And I think that is something that we should consider as well as the unstructured onboarding as well.
I really love that because I think it gives the opportunity to get the practical side and not the theoretical side of like, how does this actually apply to what I do with a customer? And what I love about what Liz is describing is like it's a formalized thing. I think most organizations probably have an informal buddy system that just naturally happens. Formalizing that, I think, takes it to the next level. So I love that idea.
I do too. I think anytime that you can have peer-to-peer, it really makes so much more of an impact, because anytime that anything is pushed down, it does not ever have the same impact as somebody that is your peer that's doing the same thing is helping you get to that next level.
Right. And that's something too that can be relatively easy to start from an ongoing perspective. If you're part of the organizations that don't have anything for your SE team, that's an easy place to start. Hopefully don't just do that, but at least it's a good place to start.
Okay.
The next topic kind of going on ongoing developments. We got onboarded, hopefully in a good way. Ongoing development, the data that we found in the report was that only 15% of companies assign responsibility to enablement teams. The rest of it being either something that's not taken advantage of, or something that the pre-sales managers and leaders have to do themselves on behalf of their teams. Chris, I'd love to throw this to you first. So who owns SE development in your org, and what does that look like?
I would say there's 3 owners. The first and most important is the SE themselves. I think it is really important that we set the expectation with people, like nobody's going to do this for you. Like you need to build your own enablement path. So much of the way enablement works now, it's like just-in-time learning, and it's very, I don't know, on demand. And so this structured format like works a little bit, but at the end of the day, like the SE needs to own what that looks like. The next person is that person's leader. So people don't know what they don't know. The SE leader needs to be able to help analyze skills, assess like gaps, and show people where they need to get from a skill perspective. And some of that might be like the obvious technical stuff, but there's a lot of not obvious stuff that goes with that. And that's where that leader having a core role and that person's enablement is really important. And then I think there is an aspect, we're fortunate enough to have an enablement team that helps drive some of this stuff. There is an aspect that like it does need to be centralized, and there should be somebody that's owning content creation, because I don't think the SE leadership team is in a place to have the time and bandwidth to go do that. But it also doesn't help you drive consistency across the organization. We want the SEs telling the same story as the sellers are. And if you don't have somebody tying those pieces together, you can end up on completely different pages. So that's how I view it, is there's kind of three different aspects. The SE owns it themselves, the SE leadership team, and the way that we drive expectations and growth and development, and then the enablement team helping to drive the content.
I love that. I love that multi kind of pronged approach. I think is so critical, especially the content piece. I think you're right. Someone needs to own it or nobody owns it. It's kind of how I've what I found out. When nobody owns it, it's not a good outcome.
Yeah, as a leader, where I have found is I'm kind of plugging in the gaps that I see from like overall enablement. Like we have an overall global enablement that's like pushing things down. That's not going to be 100% applicable to my team. And so my role as an SE leader has been, okay, I like these parts. I'm going to lean into that. There's a huge part that's missing. For my team, it has been like the softer selling skills side of things. So that's where I've stepped in and said, okay, I'm going to run enablement for that for my team.
I have a question, I guess, for the greater team, but also I've been, talking to a lot of leaders in different, really more small, medium, SMB type companies, where they're pushing a lot of their sales and pre-sales enablement to sit under the office of the chief revenue officer, right? So traditionally, we would have seen a lot of enablement, always sales enablement, because that seems to be for many people the more important part, which I would argue is not. But moving more to the chief revenue officer as opposed to an HR or in some sort of other area, are you, have you heard of that, or in your companies, is that something that's happening as well? Is that moving to a different place within the organization as well?
More broadly, that is the direction that most enablement teams have been moving. And actually a lot of in the enablement, sales enablement, broader sales enablement world, that's become the best practice of saying, if you are not under a go-to-market or sales organization, move yourself there if you can, because that's where, if you're under a cost center as opposed to a revenue center, getting funding for the enablement gets difficult if you're there and you're not tied to the other sales metrics of the organization. And so it's becoming more of a norm, because we're seeing a lot of these kind of professional enablement people be knowing that that's the best place they want to live.
I've been doing a little bit of consulting on that, and that is definitely where the push is. And going back to our previous topic about needing the budget, that's really where you're mostly gonna maybe get a little bit of money for that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move to our next topic, as we've got so many to get through. I want to make sure we give each of these enough time. With the topic of sales kickoffs is one of the data points that we started to look at. How effectively are those used? And this doesn't have to be specifically kickoffs. This could be like your quarterly events where you get together and there's some type of a sales training happening for your broader sales team and SE team. And what we found was that usually these are very product heavy focused enablement. Very little on methodology, on competitive intel, on soft skills. Liz, I'd love to hear from you on this first. How do you balance product training that's required with customer-centric skills and soft skills that are required to be a good SE?
Yeah, this is a hot topic for me. You can get me talking about this for a long time. Because in general, when you're talking about like customer centric, the soft skills, the sales skills, I feel like far too often you have organizations that think, hey, let's just put the SC as a part of the sales training, and let's just have them be, and let's also have them a part of like customer success or product training. And because we have both of those things, we're covered, right? It's a checkbox. And this is not what we need as SCs. This is not what good looks like, and this is not proper balance. And so when you're thinking about it, because it's more than just adding that sales training to the agenda, it needs to be unique to the SC team. Because in general, when you're talking about those soft skills, when you're talking about those customer centric, those sales skills, your SC should be talking about this differently than your AE, because we have a different role, because you are being that consultant, and because you are coming with that technical perspective. So because of that, because your marketing speak's not going to work if you use that in the same way, you need to go through and build in with any particular like training that you're doing, especially product training. You need to build in those value narratives into it. You need to build in those trainings as you go through. Just like you wouldn't expect SEs to go in and basically what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if your SEs are talking about feature function only, if that's what your training is doing, because you're not building those principles to be able to talk about it. So it's really about building these things in tandem and understanding that SEs need to talk about value and these kind of soft skills differently than your sales team.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely. Chris, love to hear from you on this as well. I know you had some thoughts on the balancing product training with customer centric skills.
First of all, couldn't agree more. I think we focus way too much on product detail, and that's not how customers buy. So it's not how we should train. So I think Liz said that really well. I lead a specialist team now, so I'm kind of an overlay. I wasn't in a previous role, so I've kind of been on both sides. And when we go train the generalist team as a specialist team, I tell them, like, I want you to answer 3 questions and 3 questions only. Why do I care? What do I absolutely need to know? And what can I sell? Like, that is why that's what we're trying to get people to, not how does this thing work? I think we lead engineers who are going to naturally figure out how it works. I think it's on us to help connect the dots on the value. So this was a huge gap for me. And about a year ago, I set out to figure out, like, how do I train my team on selling skills? And that's actually how I found PreSales Collective. So small plug, I hired PreSales Collective to come in. They created a custom workshop for my team. I had Liz come run it for my team, did an amazing job. But it was this unique gap that I've found in the industry, that like very little enablement is out there. And so I went and found it, and we co-created it together. And it's really great. So thank you for that.
Yeah. No, we've enjoyed working with you, Chris. Yeah, and absolutely. Didn't put you on here specifically for that plug, but do appreciate it. Yeah. That's
that was unscripted.
Completely unscripted. I love it. But yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. Like, this is the thing that we all think about, but I think it's also difficult when time crunch becomes a factor, or when there's a lot of product changes happening, there's just not enough time. But your SEs have to know about the product. But then you're absolutely right, Liz. Then all they end up doing is just they're selling features, because that's what we're teaching them how to do as well. Next question I wanted to hop over to is on something we already talked about a little bit, but on the content itself, not around the generation, but on the content that exists. What we find is that many teams have demo scripts from the reports that we got, but things like playbooks, value maps, solution architectures, those types of things tend to lag a bit behind or be completely non-existent. Liz, I'm going to hop back to you again, because when you're very familiar with building out content strategies, what should you think about when it comes to a balanced content strategy?
Yeah, and this is one of those things I feel like so often gets missed when you're talking about like the SC enablement specifically. Like sometimes you get this with sales enablement, but not SC enablement. It's because you're not thinking about it as an entire program. You're not thinking about it from a strategic angle, and it falls flat because, you know, you like again, you might have an enablement team backing you, might not, but this is really about having your content strategy back where your SE initiatives, where your goals are. And so having someone, and especially having someone in enablement, if you have the ability to do that, is so critical because they can see things that you can't. They can go ahead and look at things like, hey, how are you going to roll this particular program out? So you're thinking about the end user in mind, the SE in mind. How are they going to be using this? What are the outcomes that you're looking to achieve with this, and making sure that you're thinking ahead? How are you going to ensure the team can easily find this information after your, you know, let's just call it the half day training, because that's a lot of those things. However, this is kind of like, is that actually going to be effective for making a behavioral change? Honestly, probably not. The data doesn't support that, but yet we still do those half day trainings. I mean, I get it. We have to, but how are we going to make sure that we're making those behavioral change and what outcomes are we looking to achieve? So it's really about thinking about this things from a strategic angle, working with your enablement team if you have it. I mean, hopefully you're having SC enablement. I know it's a newer function. Well, it's not really new, but it's gaining traction, and making sure that you're partnering them with them if you have them as a strategic partner and not just as a resource.
Liz, if I could just pop in really quick, going back to your buddy system, you know, I think this buddy system is going to come up a lot. I think even when you do that half day training, if you can have then a buddy in place almost to keep everybody on track, right? So, hey, like we're going to keep each other on track, and we are going to go back and make sure that these things we learned, we're, you know, keeping up with, because if you're not using it right away, you're forgetting. So I love, you know, implementing that as part of your buddy system is another really strategic way to look at it, especially if you don't have a whole entire area that supports that.
100%.
Yeah.
Excellent. And maybe Anna, you kind of already answered the question. The next question I was going to ask is how do you ensure that it's actually being used? I feel like the buddy system could be one of those areas, but I guess Chris, would love to know, how do you ensure on your team, especially with the bigger team, how do you ensure that content being built is actually being used by that broader team?
You know, there's so many things that Liz says that make me say, yeah, that's right. This one it's all about behavioral change. It's not about like, what do the people know? It's about what do they do with what they know, and how do we get people to actually change their behaviors? This is where I think the first line leader is the most critical part of all of this. If I, as a first line leader, approach this as like, this is a checkbox and I want people to go through this, like that's how they're going to do it. If I instead participate with them and actually like role play and do the activity with them, then the content comes to life. And so I have an expectation of my first line leaders, though, that they're like very intimately involved in this kind of thing. And I'll share an activity that I did for about 2 years as a first line leader. I had this living document that everybody had access to. We have like 1 million products, so we were always getting distracted all the time. So I picked 10, and I was like, we need to be masters of 10. I called it the V10 for some reason I don't remember anymore. And the goal was to come up with, what are my 3 discovery questions and what are my 3 value statements and differentiators for each of those 10. And what I did in team meetings was I had this thing my SEs called the spinning wheel of death. And I had everybody's name on this wheel, including my own. And the wheel would spin, and I would hit the space bar, and it would pick somebody at random. And then it would pick one of those 10 at random. And that person would have to give a 2-minute pitch based on that thing that it landed on. And I would put up the slide and say, here's what we as a team figured out were our 3 discovery questions and our 3 value. And they would give it. And then for the next 20 minutes as a team, we would debrief that person's pitch and figure out like, okay, was that the right differentiator? Was that the right question? Should we adapt this? Have things changed, et cetera? So that was probably the most successful thing I've done to like make content used, because it was just a natural part of our team every week.
Oh, I think it's great. The things like that can be the most simultaneously the most stressful, but yet the most memorable, rewarding, and like effective ways to learn, which is kind of those on
Well,
the
I put my
spot.
own name on there.
Yeah.
I had to do it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were all in the same boat.
Hmm. Perfect. No, this is great. I love it. I love it. I love the ideas that are coming out as a part of this. Hopefully, if you're trying to build a enablement team of your own, you've got some notes here while listening. The last overall high level theme before we get to some takeaways and trends from the report in general is one that I care about. Anna, I know you and I are in the same boat, both coming from a data and analytics background in our SE careers, is on metrics. And what we found in our report is that there's a lot of metrics around tracking revenue and tracking kind of performance of SE teams to revenue, but very few are actually measuring the enablement ROI and how effective those different parts of those things are being. So for teams who maybe have never even thought about it, uh, what metrics, Anna, do you think someone would start with to kind of prove the impact of an enablement program?
I love this question because I love the data so much. So, to begin with, right, let's really talk about what is a good demo, right? So a good demo proves a point, a great demo proves value first, and an excellent demo proves the impact, right? So we're looking to get metrics that are going to be able to measure how we going from good to great to excellent. And a lot of that, I think if I had to pick one, I would pick time time to first value plus the quality of the demo itself. So when you look at time to first value, you pair it with a demo quality score. So, and that could be done from a rubric, or it could be done something internally that you're doing with your SEs. But the time to first value ties enablement to the customer outcome. And then that demo quality will prove that skill that you've been trying to teach has caused that demo quality to go up. Hence, you are moving from good to great to excellent. So many teams, they track revenue, but revenue is a lagging it's a lagging signal, right? That's like in the past. So you want to measure forward to what you know you could fix today. So, you come up with some KPIs about what does good or good, great, excellent look like for your team, and then you start tracking those. And a lot of time it's that in turnover. Are SCs prepping faster? Are you having to do 5 demos, or are you only having to do 3 demos? And then you could track it on a quarter by quarter basis. But I think that is, for me, like, that is a very important KPI, and one that companies need to start looking forward on their KPIs as opposed to looking backwards. What did we do versus what are we going to do, or what have we done?
That's a very critical point because as much as everyone knows, of course, we're here to sell. By the
Right,
time a deal goes close won or close lost, especially the larger or more complex your sale, you could be looking in the industry as well. You could be sometimes looking 18 months after someone did
right.
or did not have impact. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Finding ways, I love it. An idea to kind of bring it forward to value. Chris, I know you've got some example KPIs as well. What one or two would you pick as kind of areas to focus?
The core of an SE's job is, yes, it's revenue, but the core of the SE's job is technical closure. Did we get the customer to agree that we are the preferred vendor, and did we get to a final solution? The way you get there is through pitch, demo, design, POV. That's like the methodology. So that's the core of my team's job. So it stands to reason those should be my KPIs. And those are the KPIs that like I want to measure from an enablement program. I haven't quite figured out how to do all of this yet, but what I want to be doing is be measuring success rates of those things. So if I can measure how successful a demo is and how likely that is to move to a design, then I can measure the impact of that enablement training. Did my did my success rate actually go up, or who's really successful at this and can I replicate what they're doing? From a tools perspective, that's been really hard to figure out, but that's where I think we need to get to. But ultimately, to me, it comes down to what Liz said. It's that behavioral change, and how do I get my enablement to drive behavioral change? And the things I care about are the revenue generating activity.
This is great. Always a tough subject. I know we've had whole workshops at SoulCon this past year on trying to figure out how to measure and how to build actually both of these topics combined. We had a workshop on building an enablement program and on how to measure your teams. So these are very difficult topics. So I love that we're continuing the conversation, and I'm sure we'll have more webinars and discussions and workshops this next year kind of focused on that. So absolutely love it. I'd like to shift a bit into kind of the overall trends and takeaways, and this gets a little bit forward-looking on how you each are thinking based upon what you read in the report and what you're seeing as well. Specifically, enablement and SE enablement. I'd love to hear from each of you a bit on this. Anna, we'll start with you. Where do you see enablement and SE enablement heading in the next 12 to 18 months?
Great. I've had a lot of conversations about this. I actually recently read a really great article, if anybody follows Tech Radar, and they framed it really well. They said that in the next 12 to 18 months, Enable will move from human first with tools to human in the loop with AI systems. And, AI is very also near and dear to my heart. There's a lot of things that I think, that I write about and I talk about, but AI systems are going to be able to create coaching, measuring, and learning at scale. So something that Chris talked about, right? How am I going to be able to see if something is really working? So quick wins that I see in the next 12 to 18 months for teams that may not have huge tool sets is to pilot maybe some AI generated micro lessons tied to those real deals. So see, Chris or Liz, like what has worked in your organization, who's really good at it, and then measure the demo score and see that lift like in real time, right? As they're doing it. And then I also think that there's a people shift. So reskilling our senior SEs or our senior solution advisors or pre-sales people to be more validators, to be more coaches, and not just content, as I would like to call it, content librarians, right? Where's this information? Where's this demo script? We need to be able to use AI to work for us as opposed to against us, and use it to help our teams, as opposed to say, oh, like AI is going to be able to do this for us. It's not. We need to use it in the right way. And that's really 12 to 18 months. I think 2 years from now, that landscape for SEs is going to look very different, and they're all going to be better at what they do because of AI. Off my soapbox.
No, this is perfect. Perfect. Liz or Chris, I don't know if either of you have anything to add to what Anna was saying.
I mean, I'll add here. I mean, first, I really agree with what you're saying there. I think the other thing that I'd add is you're going to start to see a bigger gap as well between the folks who are thinking about enablement strategically and those who are not. And those who are not, it's going to be continually more, hey, feature function, especially from an AI perspective. Hey, let's get you up and running on these AI tools. Let's get you up and running on this AI in our product. Which is, I'm not saying that's not important, but if you're not going past that, if you're not thinking about how this relates overall, you're going to start to see that bigger shift, getting away from the folks who are thinking about it strategically, where they're bringing, like, we've always said, I feel like folks in pre-sales enablement have always said, look, you cannot do feature function. That's not going to work. We need to talk about value. So why are we now? I see so many people fall in the trap of treating AI like a feature that they want to show and that they're really excited about, but it's not really, but why? But why are we showing this thing, or why are we using this thing, and what value is it going to provide? So I think, as we think about it, less of the, because I believe, Anna, where it's headed, but I think in general, it's worth noting, I think there's going to be a bigger gap coming here in the next 12 months.
I agree.
Excellent. I guess, Chris, question I have for you then, on overall trends, someone who is an SC leader or enablement leader reading this report, what's kind of one takeaway you'd tell someone to kind of focus in on as they read through it? Because not everyone's going to read through the full thing. So what's the one thing someone should focus on?
This may be like a, what do they call it? A hot take, but don't listen to the SE is basically my advice. If you poll, which we do, if you poll the SEs, they'll consistently tell you, like, we want more technical training, we want this, we want that, and we want all the things that the report's telling us are not good. So our jobs as leaders is to see, like, where things are going and to set the vision and go execute on that vision. Sometimes that is going to be different than what the team thinks they want. And what I consistently am telling my team is, like, I'm trying to extract from the technical to value, and people are telling me, like, yeah, but the customers want us to get into this detail. And my response is always, you're talking to the wrong people. If you're talking to the right people, that's not what they want. And so if I just kind of blindly go with what my team feedback is, I'm going to be going the wrong direction. And it's my job to go set the right direction and go make that happen. And that may not always be the most popular thing, but SEs don't know what they don't know. And we're leaders for a reason.
Great.
I definitely think it's a hot take, but I think it's a good one. Like, I would, yeah, that's definitely, having myself been an SC who, in retrospect, I've known I've been focused on the wrong thing, and then leading a team as well. It's definitely great advice. Yeah, don't look at your suggestion box for everything you do. I guess in a similar take, I guess, Chris, I don't know if you have anything else to add from kind of a main takeaway or a hot take, but if you do think about that, I'll come back to you for it. But Liz and Anna, I would love to get kind of they might not be a hot take, but your main takeaways as well for leaders or people on the call who are going to read through the report. Liz, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'll just actually build upon what Chris is saying, because not all SE leaders are as great as Chris. So as I've, the past 2 years, I've been talking with lots of pre-sales leaders, and even been through and talked to them more from a like hiring and interview perspective. While a lot of pre-sales leaders say it's important to prioritize value, when it comes down to making a decision of what to prioritize, they're making the action of prioritizing technical skills. So I have two pieces of advice. One for pre-sales leaders, which is partner with your enablement leaders. Provide them with SMEs to get them that technical skills and that technical knowledge, because just like you're not going to go into a deal and you're going to be focused on specific things, if you're asked to be like, okay, well, you're just going to do all things sales and you're going to also do all these things, like, that doesn't work. So the same way that you are expected to own your stuff within the sales process, let your enablement team own and be your strategic partner so that you can build, because they have a ton of knowledge around understanding how people learn. Please use that. My second piece for enablement leaders, because I think this is also important, it's so important to understand that pre-sales has been misunderstood and under-resourced for a long time. Historically, this has been a role that has been forgotten. So if you're someone who, again, just from the enablement side, understand that this type of mentality, treating them like sales, or sales training and CS training and product training will satisfy all their needs, is just a bad take. And you need to build trust with them for them to actually get engaged for your programs.
Love that, Liz.
Yeah.
I don't have a hot take.
Okay.
I don't have a hot take, but I do have, to follow up on this, one is download the report. I mean, it's totally worth it. If you haven't already done so, I'm going to plug for download the report. There was so much work done on it, and it really is a plethora of information. And I think if you use the report more like how to make skills stick than just looking for the data, there's a lot of really meaty information tucked in behind some of the slides. If you take a peek at it, I found it really eye-opening. And then for me, I think going back to what Chris and Liz are saying is that in today's world, you need to look at your SCs not as, in many cases, engineers or as consultants, but you need to start calling them advisors. And when they become a solution advisor, it actually is going to replace how the sales team sees them in many ways. It's almost like it's a marketing spin, right? We're advisors. We're here to advise you. We're here to bring you value. We're not just here to engineer, to show you the clicks, to to implement it, to be consultants. So rethink also some of the approach that you're taking with how you call your team, because I've seen that some companies, many companies are moving to that approach, and it is changing how the other teams are viewing pre-sales, because pre-sales, nothing gets sold without pre-sales. Period. End of story. Can't sell software without pre-sales. So let's make us advisors and not just consultants and not just engineers. That's my hot take. Not really, but it's my hot take. Thanks,
It's a
Jack.
good take. It's a good take. Yeah. Don't know if it doesn't have to be a hot take to be a good take for sure. Love it. Chris, I know you may have already given your final hot take. Was there anything else you wanted to add to it before we kind of close up here?
I would just come back to like the whole reason we exist as an SE organization is to create opportunities and drive technical closure. The enablement needs to match that. And today I don't think it does. So we need to make the change so that the enablement actually enables people to do the job that we want them to do.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Anna, Liz, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time with us to be on the panel. If you are here watching or you're watching the recording later and you don't follow them, you can find them each on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to search for each of them and their names. We'll also put a link down there so you can click on that to find them, as well as the report itself. Please do read it and hopefully start putting some stuff into practice for your teams. And thanks everyone for being here. We'll see everyone on our next webinar. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.